Hello, everybody. This is the meat of the matter, and we have a very special guest today. Her name's Victoria, and she's agreed to come on and share her story because this is what we're trying to do is get the word out that this is real people, real stories, and I think there's a lot of validity in hearing what real people have to say about their journeys and what's happened to them. So, Victoria, welcome. It's great to meet
Thank
you and
you. Glad to
have
be
you
here.
on. And yeah, do you want to? Why don't we just kick it off with you? Do you mind telling us the story from the beginning and your journey and what you're all about?
Well, my carnivore story started about 2014 when my husband had a silent heart attack. He ended up in the hospital and got 4 stents in his arteries. He had some damage. And both of us had put on a little weight at that time. But I had put on weight because I had hurt my back. I damaged a spinal disc and it had herniated, and I had 5 desiccated discs, which means they were dried out. So I was in pretty bad shape and I couldn't move much. So the idea of losing some weight wasn't so bad. And we started with paleo at that time. And in a few months, we went on to an Atkins type thing. And then I discovered keto and we did keto. We were on keto for about 3 years. Now, during that time, I still suffered from a great deal of pain in my back that kept me on the couch all day. I couldn't stand for more than 2 or 3 minutes. The pain was really awful. And because I didn't want to go on opiates, I started drinking. So I was drinking about a bottle of wine a day just to keep myself comfortable. And I was never comfortable, truly, not in any position, not sitting, not standing, and not lying down. And this went on for a while, but we stayed with the keto and we did lose the weight. And even though I lost the weight, I didn't get the relief. I lost about 50 pounds at that point during the course of 3 years. And then one day we just got up and said, well, maybe we should lose some more weight. Let's try this carnivore thing. And I had been watching Dr. Sean Baker on YouTube about it. It just kind of came up on my feed. And we started it in January of 2018. And it wasn't such a big transition because we'd been keto for a few years, but we had to skip all those desserts that they eat, which really aren't necessary. And in about 6 months' time, I realized that my back pain was completely gone, absolutely gone. And I kind of couldn't believe it. So I just sort of, waited for something else to happen. And it was just such a surprise that it stayed that way. Um, what had also gone away was gout. I'd had gout for about 35 years at that point. It started when I had a twin pregnancy back in the day. And I realized I had one final gout session in my third month of carnivore, and then suddenly nothing else. And I had had it every month. It was like glass inside my feet. It was just the most awful pain. So there were 2 symptoms gone. I had another issue called lichen sclerosis, which is a skin condition that is a thinning of the membranes, and it was very painful. And I couldn't find any relief for it, not with cortisone creams or steroids. And in my ninth month of carnivore, it started to dissipate. I noticed that my skin was clearing up, and that kind of was an encouragement. That really was. And I thought, well, this is great because I'd had that for 12 years at that point in time. And just for the fun of it, I stopped doing dairy because I'd heard that it had put weight on some people who were doing the carnivore diet. And within a month, my skin condition had totally cleared up. And I couldn't believe it. I went to my doctor and she said, yep, it's gone. And we'll see again next year if it's still gone. And it's still gone. And like 5, 6 years later, it's still gone. So many things went away thanks to carnivore. And I had started carnivore when I was 66 years old. And that's kind of old. People say, oh, Well, why expect any results at that age? That plus skin tags went away. We had been on the third, husband and I, both of us went on carnivore at the same time. We'd been in the third stage of just prior to type 2 diabetes. And the fourth stage, you've got it. Well, that just disappeared with carnivore. And none of this happened on the keto diet. It all was after 3 years of keto, start the first year, in the first several months of carnivore, all this healing happened for me. And another bright spot was I had been on medications for anxiety and depression that I took to help me sleep, and I didn't need them anymore. It was just over by the sixth or seventh month. I titrated off of them and gone. So I was a new person. It was wonderful. I could walk around. I started exercising. I could walk. I could take a walk every day, and I started doing that. And it just was miraculous for an older person to see those kind of changes. And right now I'm 73 and I'm in a lot better shape than my age peers. And it's proven to me every day that carnivore is such a tremendous benefit to anyone's health situation that it just can't be denied. I hope more people find it and discover what it can do for them.
Amazing. Okay, so Victoria, tell me this much. What was the diagnosis back, say, 10 years ago when you spoke to your doctors? Like, what was the protocol? What were they trying to help you with? Like, what did the diet look like? Give me an idea of what they were saying back then.
Well, there was certainly no diet advice. There was take some opioids, and take some pills. There's pain pills. In fact, I had a wonderful doctor at the time when I lived in Florida, and he was so empathetic that when he showed me the X-rays of my spine, he started to cry because he had similar pain and he had taken the opiates, and they weren't helping him either. But he wanted me to take them just in case they might help me too. And I thought, no, I don't really want to get involved in that because even back then it was known that was a rocky road, and if any. So that was the only advice that was given. For the gout, there was no advice whatsoever. And the anxiety, I was on Effexor and I think it's called Trazone, something I was taking, and I was taking sleeping pills, Ambien, which was a real train wreck because I would wake up in the middle of the night and start eating. So there certainly was no dietary advice. And at this point in my life, I'm convinced that diet has such a tremendous impact on the way we feel and our general health that it just can't be denied.
Mm. Yeah, because usually when it comes to like the likes of gout or arthritis issues, we always hear that this is
Mhm.
down to genetics, or this could happen in the gym, or this could happen on a building site. But in your case, you knew straight away, like, listen, this is definitely something else. Like, I'm sure
Yes.
at that stage you were doing all this, you were going training,
Mhm.
I'd say you were probably eating a healthy diet. So when you were eating a healthy diet back then, what did it look like?
Well, it looked like a lot of pain and absolutely no prospect of healing. Allopathic medicine is all about take a pill, take something for it and just cover it up and pretend it doesn't exist, and you'll just deteriorate over time. But I've not deteriorated. I've improved because of carnivore. I'm certain, I think it's because certainly of the protein and also because of the fat, because we know how cholesterol from animal fats help us heal. And it's just a prescription for getting better. And I really would like to encourage people, certainly my age, with all the problems that they have. But they just don't believe it. We have one particular friend who hurt his back in the last 3 years, and he's been for a massage, he's been for chiropractic, he's been on all kinds of medication. They're talking about surgery. Will he try carnivore? No. Too much, it's
Eh,
too much out of his norm to try that kind of thing. So
And it's very, very frustrating, isn't it? It's very, very frustrating. Get older, we feel like that we have to give up. The only people that are going to help us is the people in the healthcare, the doctors, the nurses.
yeah.
Um, people like that, and it's just incredibly frustrating when you're seeing
Yes.
so many people in their 50s and 60s, and you can see that they're in severe pain.
Mhm.
That they're just willing to give up. They're just willing that, listen, I don't know what else to do.
It's not such a big deal to try it. I mean, they'd rather do that than change their diet, change their ways. And it's a little bit unconventional to them. They think, oh, eating meat and fat, I'm just going to die from heart disease. So I'd rather have the pain. But I don't understand why they can't even give it a shot. So,
Exactly. I mean, at the end of the day, if you told me, if I was on my deathbed and you told me, listen, you've got a choice now for the next 5 years to eat meat or be on medication, I know which one.
oh yeah, easy choice.
You know,
Victoria, what? So maybe if we don't mind getting into that, what are your friends? What are your family? What do they think about what you're doing? I know we kind of most people are a little bit resistant, but what do they think?
Well, they're not terribly critical, but I do actually get some positive input from people who say, well, you're so dedicated and it shows that you've benefited from it. But that doesn't mean they're about to change their mind and take up the cost and, to try it. But they're very kind, they're very loving. But I know my sister tried it. She had some IBS issues for many years, and she tried carnivore, and she surprised me by trying it. She didn't consult with me about it at all. She just started eating meat. And she spent a couple of weeks being constipated because she wasn't having any fat. Because she thought she had to do low fat meat. So she was doing lean meat, and she was miserable and constipated. So she stopped because that was a problem for her in the first place. So she just thought she made her situation worse. And I had another friend who tried it, and she wasn't eating the fat either, and wasn't getting any results. So she gave up, and they didn't ask me. And I actually went and about 5 years ago, I took a couple of courses to become a diet coach. And I don't charge for it, but I have a group on Facebook where I advise people, and I've done a lot of research, and I follow doctors who I think are pretty wise about the whole situation. And I hope to help people, but my friend and my own sister wouldn't ask me what to do, so it's kind of weird. But for the most part, my husband and I are considered just like the benevolent crazies in the family. We've got our thing that we do, that weird thing that they do, and when we get invited over, they'll have some meat entrees for us. They don't pay any attention to the fat again. They're all very low fat and think they're doing well for themselves or doing the right thing. But they are very positive in that regard. They're not giving us lectures, so we're lucky in that.
mm. And how do you balance it? How do you balance it around like parties and stuff like that, like Christmases and Easters and all that kind of stuff?
Well, when we have people over at our house, we'll throw in some vegetables. Like just Monday, we had my son and his wife and two kids were over for dinner, and I made pot roast as a main entree. And it was a carnivore pot roast. There was nothing in it that wasn't carnivore. And but I also made them some potatoes and a loaf of bread because that's what they expect. They didn't get any green vegetables because we're not going to the oxalate department. But that was their dinner, and they were fine with that. When there are parties, once in a while, I have had a glass of wine. I'm not going to fib about that, but I don't feel good afterwards. I know it just stops ketosis in its tracks. So yes, certainly there's temptations. If we ever want to have something that's like a treat, we'll try a protein bar. I think there's one brand called Nix. It's a keto protein bar, but they're still full of junk. So that's once in a blue moon. But we really, really try to stay on the right track.
And do you feel when you add these foods in, you're able to tolerate them?
Um, yes and no. I think that carnivore has really helped establish a baseline for me that's pretty strong. So I can tolerate having a glass of wine. I can tolerate having a crappy protein bar, and it's not going to knock me out of the park. About 3 years ago, though, we first moved to Arizona, we had a party for the family, and I made homemade pizza. And I had a piece of pizza. I was in such bad shape after that. I couldn't move my legs. My legs cramped up. And it was from the flour, from the gluten in the pizza crust. It just was not a good thing to do. You do get a reaction if you do that kind of thing. I've not repeated that in this time, but about 2 hours I couldn't move my legs. So yeah, if you do go off the path, you'll get a reaction. But hopefully, I don't do it too often. I don't get tempted too often, and we try to stay
Mhm.
fairly rigid.
Well, I have to say, Victoria, this is the reason why I want to get you on, because when I heard your story, I was like, wow, it's like I've had my issues, and I know the guys have had their issues in the past with what they did. But when I heard your story, I was like, wow, this woman is absolutely incredible. And you've got a wealth of knowledge when it comes to carnivore, a wealth of knowledge. And I love listening to the likes of you, because if it hadn't been for the likes of you and Ken Berry, I would have never known anything about carnivore. It was the likes of you and Ken Berry and Dr. Shafee and all these people that actually introduced me into this space, because I followed you for a long, long time, as you know, on Facebook.
Really. Hmm.
I used to ask you questions every week, and I used to get so interested. And then when we eventually met up and you told me your story, it was incredible. And you look insane. Like, you really don't look your age at all.
Thank you. I try. I feel that I look what my age should look like for the most part, instead of all bent over and inactive. So yeah, I really try to do a lot of research, and I try to get to the bottom of things and get the real answers. We're still in process with the carnivore diet. We still need a lot of research, but what I do know is that in the last couple of years, more and more research is being done on the ketogenic way of eating. And hopefully we'll see some great scientific proof, if we can call it that, that's dependable, that we know that this diet really helps people become
So,
healthy.
so in that case, then, if someone's watching this right now and has the same situation as you, that's going through all these issues with their body, they've got the arthritis, they've got the gout, they've been told that the only option is medication. They don't want it. They don't believe in this low carb nonsense. What would you say to these people?
Yeah, well, to convince people, I'd find find a way to just try something. Try cutting one thing, cut sugar or cut flour, cut starchy vegetables. Just look at, there is evidence there that the ketogenic diet has become popular because it does work. And it is a different way of looking at nutrition. And hopefully I could convince them that the old way has been around for so many decades. It's not working. It's not helping. And people are aging poorly. Everybody and their uncle has insulin resistance. I think the statistic was 88% of the American population has insulin resistance at some level or another. And worldwide, it's pretty high too. So to try to examine what's causing that, and you can right away tell it's sugar and starches. And now we know about seed oils. And I say it's plant oils because we know that plant oils will block the uptake of cholesterol and prevent it from doing its job, which jobs, plural, which is to repair our cells, because every cell in our body contains cholesterol, and also to balance our hormones. So if you take seed oils, it replaces cholesterol in the body, and you don't get the benefits of cholesterol. Yeah, it's kind of hard to convince people that this is the new way, this is the right way, but I would tell them, try one little thing. Start
Yeah.
somewhere and see how it doesn't benefit you. And I've seen people who've cut out sugar and right away they feel better, they get more energy, and they don't have that draggy feeling in the middle of the day. And they will find some benefit. Start stepwise. I'm not a big fan of jumping right into the carnivore diet. I'm really a proponent of cutting a little bit out, getting used to the idea of eliminating things because carnivore is primarily an elimination diet, and get used to the idea that these things are not that great for you and try your life without them.
Yeah,
Um,
we only had this conversation
yeah.
last. I think we were talking about addiction. And you make a very, very valid point because it's like saying to someone who's a gambler or someone who's an alcoholic, listen, I want you to give up alcohol. It's not going to happen. It's
No, can't go
not,
cold turkey. Yeah.
yeah, it's not going to happen. You need to phase them out very, very easily. And that's what I say to a lot of people as well. Like, listen, you can't just jump into this. And I think that's where people go wrong. People just want to jump into this keto space, carnivore space, and they think that if I just jump into it, it's some miracle is going to change. But it doesn't happen that way. And that's why we see so many people when they do jump into this space, they just make so many mistakes.
Yep, I agree. I'm not a big fan of that. January is carnivore month. Try 30 days on carnivore. You can really get messed up that way. First thing is you'll get diarrhea, and then you'll get constipation. You'll get hypoglycemia. You're just not going to have a happy time if you just jump into it. And I personally have done. I went from paleo to Atkins to keto to carnivore, and that was over a space of 4 years. We started our 7th year of carnivore in January,
Wow.
and it's our way of life, and we've really gotten used to it. When I shop, that's what I shop for. Our refrigerator doesn't have goodies in it. It's just, this is the way we live. And we understand how it works and why it works and how it's important to us. Research is important too, but that's kind of a slippery slope as well because you find such conflicting information, especially on YouTube and,
Um,
places like that.
Victoria, just touching back on that, because there's so many things that you just mentioned there that are so vitally important. A lot of people, I find a lot of people don't do the research, but if they do, they just see the first thing and then they follow the norms. And getting back to your husband's situation with stents and serious complications with the vascular system, how did you guys like? What did it feel like when you were jumping into this and taking a leap of faith? Because it must have been very, you know, frightening to say the least.
Well, our primary interest was to lose weight. Both of us had gained about 50 pounds. And the diet happened because we remembered back from the 70s, being as old as we are, that we'd both done Atkins back then and it had worked for us, but then we just drifted away from it. Um, and it was the weight loss that helped us a lot. And it was a positive thing in that regard. If I can answer your question, um, he had an interesting story too, because he was fine while he was on keto. His cholesterol went down and the doctor was happy. But when we started carnivore, within 6 months, his cholesterol more than doubled. His high cholesterol was 518. And that, you'd think his doctor was going to have a heart attack because it was so high. But we tried a few things. Um, I, we quit coffee, which was the first one, and that brought his cholesterol and triglycerides down. So of course now we're proponents of not drinking coffee. He does drink decaf, although there's some caffestrol in there that might do it, but it's so much better. But it took about 6 months on carnivore to bring that down, and it there wasn't a repercussion. The losing of the weight was really helpful. So in that regard, that helped. But carnivore presented another challenge with the cholesterol. And I see a lot of people go through that. Oh my God, I went to the doctor and my cholesterol is sky high. Well, we know now that triglycerides are what we need to watch. And ironically, on carnivore, your triglycerides do go down. And you need to compare your triglycerides to your HDL and in a ratio so that you know, and there's a whole, I think it's a number graph of what you can, your score should be. And you'll find that will happen naturally, even though your cholesterol may be higher than your doctor likes, and they keep lowering that threshold anyway. So, yeah. So, our entire experience with keto and carnivore has been very positive.
Amazing, absolutely amazing. Yeah, that's the one thing. That's the one thing we're always been told about cholesterol is that once the LDL goes up, they'll all have a panic attack, but they just don't understand that with your HDL and your everything else. And people just don't understand, especially these doctors, these experts, when it comes to cholesterol. They just blame it on everything. They blame it for all our downfalls. You look at all the metabolic issues that are going on at the moment. Everybody just blames it on cholesterol. And whereas when you look around, everybody in the world is scared of eating fat. Nobody eats a high fat diet. Nobody eats red meat. But yet, when you look around, these metabolic issues are going straight through the roof.
Yeah, but it's a lie. It's all based on a lie. And we go back to Ansel Keys and his adjusted data on how he eliminated so much information when he was studying things. And then they just deified him as some kind of nutritional expert when he was just a fraud. And we, little by little, we're coming to understand how important and healthful it is to have cholesterol in your body and how it heals you. So I'm hoping that the trend continues in that direction.
Yeah. And how do you think we can push in that direction? Because that's one thing we need to be focused on a lot. We need to be changing the mindset now of people and saying, right, okay, listen, when you go into your shop, you don't want to be looking at like buying lean sources of meat. You need to be making sure that you need to be buying the meat as nature gave it to us. You know what I mean? You have the meat there with the fat on it. Don't be putting it in the bin. You
Well,
know,
I think it's going to be down to research because the scientific community has to become convinced. And I think they will be because by living the example, so many of us in the carnivore community have seen improvements in our health that it cannot be denied. It just has to be that the more that they study us and the more of us who continue on this path will be the shining example that that's going to be the road ahead for us. You just can't tell people. We need to show people. So I'm here ready to be studied if anybody's interested that my health has improved so greatly, and I have the X-rays to prove it. So it's really, I unfortunately it's word of mouth is one thing, but getting the scientific community involved is another. And I know there have been some studies, but they haven't been clinical studies. So we need
and
to be involved in clinical studies.
they've never been proven ever.
Yeah, well, no, the whole cholesterol thing has no
Oh
evidence
yeah, yeah,
behind it, but
yeah,
we have evidence
yeah.
now, and we can show that we are healthier because of this diet, and I'm hoping that it's the wave of the future, that we'll
No,
see this.
no, what I meant was like when they come out with all these studies about cholesterol, none of it was ever proven.
No,
Whereas,
yeah,
whereas now, like there's thousands of people now in the world that are you can see that are thriving on
yes.
this way of eating. You just need to speak to these people. You know what I mean? I met Tony and I met Peter through TikTok. These
Mhm.
guys, you know what I mean, came we this is the reason why we decided to come up with this page, because more people need to hear this. More people need to hear these stories. We need to be saying to people, okay, listen, you don't need to listen to us. We may be coaches. You need to be listening to people that are actually going through this. You know what I mean? There are a lot of people that are going, like you mentioned, that are going through insulin resistance, that are going through stage cancer in their life, that are going through endometriosis, that have the diabetes. Peter is a type 1 diabetic. Peter was told for years he had to eat carbohydrates for years.
Yes, yes, I know that that's the advice of that. I lost a friend who had a heart attack, but he had type 2 diabetes, and he wasn't particularly obese, but he had it, and he was a real candy fan. He would hide candy around the house, but he listened to his doctor that he could have carbohydrates, so he'd ration out his candy and he'd eat the darn sweets. And this was during the time when my husband and I were starting keto, and we tried to advise him. Oh, he would not listen to us. It was all about what his doctor had to say. And he was on metformin, and he was on his way to being on insulin. And so he was just getting worse, eating the carbohydrates while he was type 2 diabetes. So none of the medications were helping him. None of the advice was helping him. And we think that it really impacted his heart and brought it to a very unhappy, unfortunate end for him.
Oh my
But
God.
yeah, cholesterol is present in the body, I wanted to say, because it's healing you. And if your cholesterol is high, then there's something going on that you should be aware of. And I think it's going to be discovered, and little by little it has been. We see more and more books now about the true cholesterol story of how it's not so awful. It's not the bugaboo that we're concerned about. So yeah, cholesterol is our friend.
And the main thing is, like, when it comes to chronic inflammation, we have to get down to the bottom of it and find out, okay, this is what's causing the problems. And we need to be addressing this, and we need to be finding out, okay,
Mhm.
if inflammation is the problem, then what macronutrient is actually causing the most damage? And this is where it all comes down to insulin. Insulin resistance then is
Mhm.
a major problem.
Yes, yeah,
So if like,
absolutely.
a lot of people just need to understand that the reason why you're suffering is because inflammation is going through the body at the moment. And
Mhm.
people need to understand also that no matter what carbohydrate you're eating, whether it's a complex carbohydrate, whether it's a simple carbohydrate, whether it's processed food, they all do the exact same thing.
Mhm.
They all break down the sugar when they enter the body.
Mhm. I think there's another component too for inflammation from plants, which bring a lot of toxins. And it's very ironic that there is a World Health Organization list online that I have posted in my group of toxins from plants. And they list 20, 30 plant toxins that you can get just from eating plants. And here's an organization that a few years ago, Dr. Georgia Edie did a review of their study that they said that we should cut back on protein because protein brought heart disease. No, it's just nonsense. And the same organization has this tremendous list of here's all the toxins you get from plants that can cause inflammation and are poisoning you slowly, but they're poisoning you. So that, and also the plant oils that block cholesterol from working. It's almost like a trinity of things. There's the sugars, the plant oils, and the toxins from plants. So we need to become more aware of how these things impact us. And I
The
think that's
devil's
coming to light.
the devil's triad. As
Yes, there you go.
As your fine Irish Mark Ivor Cummins says, the devil's triad.
Uh,
Yes.
And
so, Victor, go
go ahead.
ahead. Go ahead, Tony.
So you said a lot of things there that's interesting. Like, a lot of people are starting to become aware of plant toxins and, oxalates and all the and lectins. But, when you cut out, when you transitioned into carnivore, did you notice there was like a specific group? Did you start like one plant at a time, or did you just go straight into carnivore, cut out all the plants, and that's when it happened?
We kind of rolled into carnivore over the course of a month. We were still having vegetables. Now, I didn't mind dropping all vegetables, but I was kind of concerned about my husband. We had cucumbers and cauliflower and cabbage, which are relatively low in oxalates, and they're very keto friendly. So there weren't the starchy vegetables, but they weren't dark green vegetables. We peeled the cucumbers to get rid of the oxalates that are largely contained in the skin. So yeah, the first month we did do a few. So we kind of rolled into it that way. But afterwards it was straight meat and fat. And yeah, but we did take a little bit to transition because a lot of people just can't get that wrap their head around meat and fat only. So it's not awful to do that, I don't think.
Well, we need the fiber to break down the food, Victoria. You know that, don't you?
No, we don't need any darn fiber ever. I haven't had fiber in years, and I really don't have an issue with that whatsoever.
I
It did
get
take a while, though. It took me about a year to be regular, as they say. Didn't take my husband as long, but it really is something that is so surprising to people that can't have, you're not having fiber. In fact, we have a son who lives with us. He's 38 years old, and he's not here now, so I can talk about him, and he'll never hear this recording, but he takes Metamucil every damn day, because he needs fiber. And he's got broccoli in my refrigerator, and he'll have cucumbers, and he has to have his fiber. And he buys bread and it's got seeds in it. So I'm like, you don't need this. It's not. And his reaction to me is, Mother, when you speak to me about nutrition, it makes me want to cry. I said, yeah, because you don't want to give up your old conceptions. And he's not big on sugar, which is for which I'm grateful. And he doesn't eat processed food, so he thinks he's eating cleanly when he eats chicken and broccoli and cucumbers and hard-boiled eggs and fat-free, sugar-free yogurt. That's his diet. And he thinks he's doing the right thing by him, but he still needs that Metamucil. So unfortunately for him, and I will bug him every once in a while, say, sorry, I don't need that stuff. Get it out of here.
Yeah, because that's what I usually hear as well. When people go on these high protein diets, they get backed up very, very easily. And that's the reason why they usually say, right, okay, I need to eat the fiber to get rid of all this weight. Same with the
Uh,
standard American diet. Like if you're on a
Mhm.
like poor diet and you're eating a lot of processed junk, then yeah,
Oh,
you're
yeah.
that's going to lead to constipation. So yes, fiber can help, but that's the
Mhm.
point. We want to eliminate these foods, full stop. So you don't have to. You shouldn't be eating these foods. So you shouldn't
Yeah.
have at all.
It's a new
I
paradigm
was,
for
oh,
people.
sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I just want to say it's a new paradigm, and people need to understand that it works and how it works. And it's, what we're up against. We're all pioneers here, helping people understand it. I'm sorry, Peter. Go on.
No, I was wondering because you are doing the carnivore diet for 7 years and you don't seem to be missing those things like cucumber. Do you have anything like cravings? Anytime do you find it difficult to
I
maintain the diet?
crave
Or
I crave beef. I took some beef ribs
yeah,
out of the freezer this morning, and I really, the last few days, we had chicken for dinner last night, and when I make chicken, I cook it in butter. And when we eat chicken, I put the butter on the chicken. You gotta have some fat with a meat that has virtually no fat. And I said, that's it. I need some beef. So I took the beef ribs out of the freezer, and they're defrosting. They'll be dinner tonight. I'll put them in my instant pot and we'll have them. And that's what I crave
Yeah.
I do the same thing when I eat chicken.
yes,
It's great for one bite, and I'm like, why am I doing this? Let's have a steak.
put some butter on that stuff, honey.
Absolutely. Give me a steak over a bowl of oats any day.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, no, 100%, no, 100%, because I just think that fiber is just so misled. It's just unbelievable. It really is. It's unbelievable how when you look at our two macronutrients, carbohydrates and fiber, these are two non-essential macronutrients. But everybody on social media preaches that we should be eating these foods.
No, I know my sister will confess that she ruined her digestive system by being on a high fiber vegetable diet. And she did that for a couple of years. And then suddenly she lost control. She has an implant that is like a pacemaker for your intestines. And she got that last year to help her with her digestive regularity, because she damaged herself so much with vegetables. And it's unfortunate. It's when will people wake up? Hello, it's just not. helping you at all.
Mm. So what does a standard day look like food-wise, Victoria?
Well, I'm not big on breakfast. Usually in the morning, I'll have a collagen shake, which I make with a scoop of collagen powder and some ice cubes. And yeah, that's it, maybe a little vanilla extract once in a while, and have that for breakfast. Lunch, I might have some eggs or some ground beef, and dinner is beef. We have a rotation of steak and hamburger, beef in some sort of a pot roasty form. Like I'm having ribs tonight, but Monday we had a chuck roast and chicken, and it's just that's it. I once in a while I make a carnivore pizza, and I make half of it with cheese for my husband because I can't eat it, and the other half without for me, and the crust is meat. So we use a few seasonings. I have started using some garlic because it's very low in oxalates. Sally K. Norton, who's the oxalate expert, has a list, yes, and in her blog of oxalate containing spices. And she says that 10 grams of oxalates is the dosage that will make the reaction happen where oxalates bind to the calcium and iron and other nutrients in your food and render them useless by storing them in your joints, your kidneys, and your bones. Now, I had a kidney stone last year, but I was 72 years old, and I'm just not. I don't eat vegetables, really, especially not green vegetables, the high oxalate ones. So that was just bound to happen anyway. But I had a scan, and I'm not going to have any more kidney stones. So, that will happen.
You
So
made
sorry.
sorry, you made a good point because I think like even in your situation from what you're saying, and a lot of times when we're talking to people about this kind of stuff, the time factor is another thing we can't study. So I know from Sally's talks and what she said, like this is something that it can rear its ugly head. And if you just like speaking of going right to carnivore, dropping all the vegetables, it's something. And
Mhm.
quite often you mentioned gout. I've talked to people that don't drink that have gout, and I'm like, it's not gout. I think it's oxalates. You
Oh,
know,
yes. Yeah, I agree with you on that. And your body is going to start shedding them. And then you get symptoms like you get a rash. You get it all over your body, your face, your chest, your arms, your stomach. You'll get a rash from that. And people get all kinds of other symptoms, headaches, um, and the kidney stones too. Your body just wants to get rid of that stuff. And when it reminds me of the ancients who used to take poison on a regular basis because they could build up an immunity. And that's just what's happening with oxalates in your body. As you consume them, you build a bit of a resistance to them. But once you stop eating them, then you become susceptible to them. And they also try to escape your body because your body knows that they're foreign and that they're toxic, and they just want to get rid of them. So
And
you'll
that's
have
and that
symptoms.
and that's usually the last protocol when you start doing an elimination diet. You go down as low as, okay, I'm just eating protein now and I'm just eating vegetables. If anything, this should be the best diet. This should be help me get healthy, heal my body. And then when we do get to that situation where you feel like, what, something is still not right. I don't feel good. I'm still
Mhm.
walking these issues. What can it be? All I have on my plate pretty much is just a piece of meat and some vegetables. I can't just let the vegetables go because, again, vegetables are healthy. We've been told
Yeah.
for years and years and years we cannot give up our vegetables. If anything, we should be eating 5 a day, as they say.
No, no, not for me anymore.
No,
Not
absolutely.
interested.
Yeah. Yeah, it
Just
was.
walk past the produce department. Not for me.
Yeah, like, because the one thing I felt, I always had the same thing. I was like, okay, why do I have subs? Why am I walking around bloated? Why am I walking around and I have all this gas, breaking wind,
Oh,
breaking wind
yeah.
every 5 minutes? I thought
Mm-hmm.
I thought back then this was all natural.
Mm-hmm. It's
I
expected,
Yeah,
certainly. Yeah.
I thought like, listen, it's completely normal. And then I asked the question, okay, well, why am I being told if I have issues with my stomach that I need to be on an enzyme? I was on I was on an enzyme for nearly 2 years.
To help you break down the stuff you're eating
Yeah.
because your body can't deal with it. That people ask me about probiotics, and I said, well, only people who eat vegetables need pro and prebiotics because their whole function is to break down the cellulose in the vegetables you're eating.
Mm-hmm.
So if you didn't eat the vegetables, you wouldn't need the pre and probiotics.
Exactly. Exactly.
I
What's
have
that do?
I have my nutritional pathology textbook from my nutrition school. And if you look at every single, this is why I'm not a nutritionist, by the way, just because every single intervention for every single condition or problem is probiotics first. And I'm
Oh,
like, how is that possible? What the hell did we do without them? You know what I mean? It's crazy,
Yeah.
and
what?
it's
Yeah. What is wrong with science today where they just don't look at diet as the cause? I guess they figure because you eat and you're still alive, so then there must be something else going on. As long as you're living and you have a problem, there's something else, and we can throw a pill at it. But it's the diet. It's right there. It's as evident as anything, as plain as the nose on your face, as they say. Look at that. Look to that.
Yeah, the system is failing so many people. It's unbelievable how we're able to get in a situation where we can convince people that if you have something out of a bottle, it's going to get you healthy. It's just insane. It's absolutely insane. It's actually getting worse. And you look in the last 20, 40, 60 years, there's always something they're bringing out every single year. Always something. You look at the latest trend now. People are trying to lose weight. They've tried everything. They tried absolutely everything. They're suffering with food noise. They're suffering with their diet. They're suffering with cravings. They're suffering with hunger. Oh, you know what we're gonna do? We're gonna take. We're gonna work. We're gonna come up come up with this magic formula, and we're gonna put it into a pen. You're gonna
Mhm.
inject your fucking body, and it's gonna
Oh,
change your
yeah.
life.
Ozempic. Don't get me started on Ozempic.
no, Victoria. Let's start. Let us know.
Okay.
Let us know how you feel about it. I'd love to hear it.
It's so damaging. And yes, it may work to curb your appetite, but whatever the mechanism that's going on there, what you're really losing is muscle mass because it's just simply clamping down on your appetite, and that's not a healthy way to lose weight, and you're just going to go back to where you were if you stop it at any point. You're just going to gain that weight back, and it's not going to be muscle mass, it's going to be fat,
Mhm.
because it's very hard to gain muscle mass unless you are really pushing protein, and you're lucky if you do gain most of your muscle mass back. So it's just such an awful vicious cycle, and just another one of those things, as Mark said, that comes down the pipe, that is the latest fad. And I'm so sorry to see people doing that, because yeah, they'll lose some weight, but that's not a healthy way to lose weight. It's not very sustainable nutritionally, because you're just not eating.
And see,
You
and
know,
see, and see, losing muscle. If you're losing muscle, that has a direct impact on hunger.
well, yeah,
Yes.
and not to mention, I think there's a side that a lot of people don't talk about is holding your muscle.
Mhm.
It's
Mm-hmm.
not about building muscle because we associate protein. But as we get older, it's so important to hold on to your bone density, hold on to your
Yes.
muscle tissue.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's that they play on this weight loss that and that's the saddest part is it works, but it's like when you really look into why, man, it's a mess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've had a couple of DEXA scans in the last 4 years. They do it every 2 years, and I have not lost any muscle mass or bone mass. And in fact, I've had a slight reversal. I don't have osteoporosis. I have a very small amount of osteopenia in one of my hips, and I wouldn't know it if they didn't tell me. But I don't have a dowager's hump like women my age do. I've got a little scoliosis, but I'm really holding in. And protein is key to that. Everybody goes, "Oh, you have to take a calcium pill." No, that's not going to help you. That may even screw you up because calcium will build up in your body unless you're eating vegetables, and you're going to not see the results you need without the protein. And so many people in my age group, they'll have tea and toast for breakfast, and they'll have a little something snack for everything is carbohydrate based. They're not getting the protein that they need to support their bone and muscle mass, and they're certainly not walking and exercising like they should.
You know,
to maintain that.
an evolutionary biologist from my country, from Canada, and his name's Michael Rose. And his whole takeaway of his work is the older you get, the more you have to get to a species-specific diet. So every bite, the older you get, count. Like, you have to take that in consideration. And I mean, if you look at
and build a muscle as well.
yeah, and if you look at the work of Gabrielle Lyon and Don Lehman, she worked in
Don Lehman, I'm a big fan of his.
yeah.
Yes.
And it's like you're looking at a geriatric clinician that was witnessing frailty. You know, when she's telling people like, "Look, I've seen this. It's protein." So it's amazing that that you've got that awareness, because it's a lot of people, especially as we get older, don't realize it's not even so much what you're putting in; it's what you're not getting when you do those things.
Exactly true.
Gabrielle always says this on our videos, that we're, as a nation, that the one thing we're struggling with is we're vastly under muscled.
Yes.
Vastly. You can
see.
So you can see it when people get older, they think that, okay, I just need to go out and do a run. I need to be on a low calorie diet. I need to be on a low fat diet. I need to bring my cholesterol down. Like you mentioned, Victoria, like if they're struggling with, like, say, their bones or stuff like that, they're saying, okay, I need to be on a high calcium diet. No, you need to be eating an animal-based diet, and you need to be focusing more on the fat. The collagen is what's going to help you with your bones.
Yes, and it's true. Every bite counts. It really does. And that's the focus in my household. The protein is important, and the fat.
100%.
So yeah, without it, we're just going to deteriorate and wonder why. Well, when it's so easy to understand.
Well, hopefully after this, now I'm hoping a lot of people actually see this video, because a lot of people need to be hearing this. And as I mentioned earlier, this is the reason why we chose to do this. Do you guys have anything else you want to say to Victoria before we let her go?
I just want to say, Victoria, it was a pleasure meeting you. And it's so nice to hear your story, and showing that people not only need to wake up, but listen to Victoria, people, please, because she's doing it, she's living it, and she's real, and I'm impressed, and it was a pleasure.
Well, thank you. It's a pleasure meeting you and Peter, and certainly to see Mark again.
Yeah, and we'll definitely have to do this again in the near future, Victoria, definitely.
Anytime you want to come back, Victoria, we'd love to have you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Where can people go to find you, Victoria?
Well, I'm on Facebook pretty much. I have a group called Carnivore Diet After Age 40. And I started that. I originally started it after age 60 because I was over 60 when I started, and I kept moving it down because younger and younger people need this kind of information. So at least by the time you're 40, it's time to face the music that you need to get your nutrition in order and understand why. So that's it on Facebook, on the Carnivore group.
Amazing. We'll put that link below and get people to definitely tune into that channel, because I'm on it. I'm a big fan, as you know.
Thank you, dear.
And you've got unbelievable following, so you've done remarkably well on that page.
Yeah, there's some great people on there, and they're all very smart about it. And thank you guys too for doing what you're doing. I appreciate it, and carry on.
Thanks very much.
Sure.
Thank you.
Big down.
Okay, bye now.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.